2 weeks after the biggest upset in Olympic history, Ilia Malinin showed up at a gala in Zurich, and the rehearsal footage that leaked broke the entire internet in half. He was not supposed to be there. He was supposed to be processing an 8th-place finish, the most devastating result of his career, in private and out of sight. Instead, he headlined 5 consecutive nights at the 30th anniversary of Art on Ice, skating to live performances from James Bay and Jess Glynn, in front of crowds giving standing ovations. No judges, no scorecards, no technical panel, just him and the ice and the music and the specific freedom that comes from competing for nothing except the joy of the movement. The crowd was going wild for the show, for the Balenciaga denim and the flashy threads, and the pure, upbeat energy that looked nothing like a man carrying the weight of an Olympic collapse. But the show itself was not the story. The rehearsal tapes that leaked from Thursday, February 26th were the story, and what they showed stopped the skating world completely cold. He floated a quad axel in warm-up like he was stepping over a puddle, 4.5 rotations suspended in gravity, the hardest jump in the sport, executed with terrifying ease during a casual practice session. This is the exact jump that cost him the gold medal in Milan, the jump that failed him on the biggest stage of his career, under the weight of years of accumulated pressure and online toxicity. 6 days after that failure, and he is landing it for applause at a gala, not grinding through it with clenched teeth and desperate focus, but floating it with the casual confidence of someone for whom the impossible is routine. He first etched his name in history as the first human ever to execute the quad axel at the U.S. International Classic in September 2022, when he was 17 years old, and the sport had never seen anything like it. 4 years later, he stands completely alone at the mountaintop of technical difficulty, still the only person on Earth who owns this jump, regardless of gender, tossing it off in rehearsal like it costs him nothing at all. The internet reacted within minutes of the clip hitting social media. He makes the impossible look effortless, and doing it in practice after an Olympic disaster is a specific kind of psychological statement that does not require translation. Then Friday, February 27th arrived, and the second clip dropped, and the skating community upgraded from shocked to genuinely unhinged about what they were watching unfold in a show warm-up. Quad axel chained directly into a triple toe loop. Landing the hardest individual jump in the sport is one category of achievement, but chaining it into a combination immediately after landing is a completely different beast. The physics of it require wrapping your head around what the body is actually doing. The quad axel demands 4.5 full rotations launched forward, the only jump in the sport where you take off facing your own direction of travel. The explosive power required, the surgical timing needed to land cleanly and then instantly snap into 3 more rotations in the blink of an eye. This is not a sequence that exists in any other competitor's competitive reality. He was drilling this in practice at a non-competitive showcase with no scores on the line, no title at stake, no judges watching with technical collar sheets, just because playing it safe is simply not part of how he is built. The tapes confirm what his post-Milan Instagram post was communicating. The collapse was mental, triggered by years of accumulated pressure, and the physical hardware underneath was never touched by any of it. Then the third clip dropped, and it was the one that genuinely broke everyone's brain. Quadruple lutz into quadruple loop. 2 massive quads back-to-back in a single sequence during a casual warm-up at a show. Not a quad triple, which is already gold medal difficulty, and already at the outer edge of what the elite of the elite in this sport can manage under competition conditions, with full preparation. Quad into quad, 2 4-rotation jumps chained consecutively, virtually non-existent in competitive men's figure skating, even among the athletes who have defined what technical difficulty means for the past decade.
The quad lutz is the second hardest quad on the planet, trailing only the axle. 4 turns, a massive toe pick vault from the outside edge, and enough rotational torque to genuinely damage the ice surface on landing. The split second he lands it, he launches into the quadruple loop, 4 more spins off the edge with no toe pick assist, completely different physics, different muscle groups engaged, different rhythm required from the exit velocity of the lutz. Social media went nuclear is not a description of the reaction. It is an understatement of what happened when 3 clips showing these combinations arrived in the skating community's timeline within 48 hours. The verdict delivered by those 3 clips is simple, and it does not require expert commentary or technical analysis to understand. 8th place in Milan did not break him, and it did not slow him down by a single rotation. The collapse in the Olympic final was mental, triggered by years of online toxicity mixing with the compressed pressure of the biggest competitive moment of his life until the levee broke under the combined weight. The mechanics were untouched. The monster jumps were still locked, still loaded, still executable at a level that no other human being on the planet can access, regardless of how hard they train or how gifted they are. 2 weeks after the disaster, and he is attempting physics-breaking combinations in warm-ups that the rest of the field would not risk in competition with full preparation, a full night's sleep, and nothing at stake but pride. He is not running from the failure or hiding from the memory of it or cautiously rebuilding his confidence through safe, manageable content in low-pressure environments away from any serious scrutiny. He is charging directly at the hardest technical content in the history of the sport and doing it casually, which is the most aggressive possible response to a public failure available to any competitor in any discipline.
The Art on Ice showcase itself delivered everything the crowd came for. Pure, upbeat energy, zero visible fear, absolute artistry that looked nothing like someone 18 days removed from the most devastating result of their career. He skated to Rather Be by Jess Glynn and Pink Lemonade by James Bay with the kind of performance energy that filled a 5-night run and generated standing ovations from audiences who understood the context of what they were watching. One-footed backflips and wild stunts that carry no competitive point value whatsoever, moves that exist purely as demonstrations of what the body can do when the athlete is not constrained by a rule book or a judging panel. The Pink Lemonade costume grabbed the spotlight from the first moment and held it through every note of the program. Flashy Balenciaga denim, pure showmanship, the cultural presence of someone who understands they are not just an athlete, but an icon. The fans were eating every second of it, not just because the skating was extraordinary, but because of the specific emotional context. This was not a champion coasting through a showcase. This was a fighter showing who he actually is without the pressure. But the internet was not buzzing about the show itself by the time the weekend ended. It was losing its collective mind over the practice sessions because he was making history before the competition even started. Now all eyes turn to Prague and the World Figure Skating Championships, running March 23rd through 29th at the O2 Arena, where the stakes are exactly what they need to be for this specific moment in his career. He won Montreal in 2024. He conquered Boston in 2025, and a Prague victory ties him with Nathan Chen for 3 consecutive world titles, the only American to pull that off in the last decade of this sport. Chen's three-peat is the ghost he is chasing, the historical benchmark that transforms an already extraordinary career into a permanent chapter in the record books that cannot be removed or revised by anything that happened in Milan. The question that the quad-to-quad combination in Zurich warm-ups raises for Prague is not whether he will show up or whether the talent is intact. Those questions were answered by the leaked rehearsal footage. The question is what he actually brings to the competitive program when the pressure cooker turns back on, when the judges are watching, when the gold is on the line and the accumulated weight of expectation fills the arena again. If he is throwing quad lutz into quad loop combinations for applause at a non-competitive showcase, the logical extrapolation of what he deploys at Worlds when the title is available is genuinely difficult to process. Most skaters in his position would make the conservative choice after an Olympic collapse: rebuild confidence through safe technical content, demonstrate consistency, protect the mental health he spoke about so honestly and publicly after Milan. That is the rational athletic response to what happened, the response that coaches recommend and sports psychologists endorse and career advisors suggest when the priority is protecting long-term sustainability over short-term statement-making. Ilia Malinin is not most skaters, and Zurich confirmed this emphatically and without any ambiguity. He is built differently at the psychological level, wired to respond to failure by escalating the difficulty rather than retreating from it. The same instinct that made him attempt the quad axel in competition before any other human being had successfully executed it is the same instinct driving him toward quad-to-quad combinations in warm-ups 2 weeks after the worst night of his career. Playing it safe is not in his DNA, not in training, not in shows, not in the way he communicates publicly, not in the way he processes failure, not in any aspect of how he approaches the sport that has been his entire life. The collapse was mental, never physical, and the mental work was done publicly and honestly in that Instagram post and in the Olympic gala skate to Fear by NF in the gray hoodie and ripped denim that he said captured exactly where his head was at. He identified the enemy, named it publicly at 21 years old with his career and his endorsements and his public reputation all on the line, and then showed up to a gala in Zurich and started throwing quads in warm-ups. That sequence of events, the honest post, the emotional gala, the technical escalation in Zurich is not a coincidence, and it is not a performance for public consumption. It is an athlete doing exactly what athletes do when they are genuinely ready. The quad axel he missed in Milan he is now nailing casually in practice. The quad-to-quad combinations he is attempting in warm-ups do not officially exist in competitive figure skating as a regular element in anyone else's program. The practice footage is racking up more views than the main event of the showcase because the skating world understands what it is watching: a champion who survived a public collapse and came back technically elevated rather than diminished. The mechanics were always there, the hardware was always intact, the physical capacity to execute content that no other human being can access was never the question, and Milan never put it in doubt despite what the scoreboard showed. Prague is going to tell the rest of the story. Not the story of whether the quad god survived Milan, because Zurich already answered that, but the story of what he is actually capable of when the gold is waiting at the end of it. The Prague O2 Arena is going to receive a version of Ilia Malinin that has done something most elite athletes never manage after a catastrophic public failure: come back more dangerous than he was before the crash. The technical content available to him is unprecedented. The combinations in his warm-up repertoire belong to a category of difficulty that does not exist in anyone else's program at any level of competitive figure skating. 3 consecutive world titles would tie Nathan Chen's record, and the athlete arriving in Prague has footage of quad-to-quad combinations executed in casual practice that Chen at his absolute peak was never attempting in any context. The comparison to Chen is the right historical frame, but the honest assessment is that what Malinin is building technically in 2026 is operating at a difficulty ceiling that the era of Chen did not have access to and could not have created. He is 21 years old. He is hunting a three-peat. He has spent 2 weeks after an Olympic collapse escalating his technical content rather than retreating from it, and the leaked warm-up footage has the skating world holding its breath. This is not a broken athlete piecing himself back together. This is a quad god who found out what breaks him, fixed it publicly, and showed up to warm up at a gala throwing combinations that the rest of the sport cannot even see from where they're standing.